I'm trying to unpack why markets want to go up so badly on all of this news. Because
I'll
it seems
tell you
like,
why. Yeah. So there's two things. Look, the disaster scenario for the United States economy is supply chains being destroyed. Right. So, like, for example, my daughter works in the textile. Well, she works in the fashion industry, and what they were hearing is the textile manufacturers are basically saying they are completely, if the in the original tariff situation, they were completely fucked. Literally, it's just there's no way they're going to be able to get supplies. And so, if you're a manufacturer, if you're whatever, it doesn't matter where your actual the part down chain in the supply chain, who's actually making the dresses out of the fabric. If you can't get the actual fabric, you're screwed. That was replicating throughout a plethora of industries. And so people, if you want to know why we went to the negotiating table, it's because lots and lots of companies throughout a ton of industries are basically saying, listen, the supply chain is not ready for this sort of shock treatment. What's amazing about that is not amazing, but interesting about that is that Bissett effectively said the same thing on Sunday. What he said is, in COVID, he basically talked about the trade-off between efficiency of supply chains and strategicness of supply chains. And that's exactly right. That he said in COVID, we learned that our very efficient supply chains were very non-strategic. And so what we need to do is get ourselves back into that position, but that takes time, and that means more targeted tariffs in places where we're actually ready to compete. So tariff things that you are ready to compete, and don't tariff things where it takes 5 years to build a factory, right? Effectively that way. And so that is kind of the change, and it is a change. It's a change towards being more strategic, more real world, less across the boardy on these big tariffs. But at the same time, if you saw what Lutnick said over the weekend, he said specifically, across the board tariff is a consumption tax, but it's a consumption tax that you're exempted if you're buying US. And is that really that bad? That's effectively what he said. And once again, I've said similar things. I mean, if you talk about a national VAT, if you versus national income tax, and you could talk about those, and yes, there's regressive and there's all sorts of issues with that. But generally speaking, people don't get totally freaked out about it. And so you have the two people who are the two mouthpieces of the administration kind of getting more together. That's why the markets are up today, as opposed to this, oh my God, who's going to say what, when, and where, and are we going to shoot ourselves in the foot? That doesn't mean we're out of the woods.
But
like in a vacuum, that's why people are relaxing.
Yeah, I agree with you. In a vacuum,